Hey everybody, it's Tuesday, it's 3 o'clock. That means it's Tech Tuesday. My special guest today is Chris Tucker from Nokia. We'll be right back. Let's just close that down. There you are.
Good afternoon, Rick.
I see you now. Yeah, I was having, as you know, as always happens, it's like Murphy's Law. You have technical difficulties, and we had technical difficulties on my end about 2 minutes before we started here, so I was trying to get that fixed, and we did fix it. And now you're there instead of my email, so that's good. Good to see you. So this is Chris Tucker. Chris is Director of Business Development and Technology at Nokia. So thanks for joining me. And we were going to talk today about fiber and talk about some choices that service providers might be thinking about as they maybe look to upgrading the fiber that they have, or in some cases if they are maybe a cable operator thinking about deploying fiber for the first time, maybe in greenfield situations, what they might do. So what are some of the choices that they can make? So before we get started, tell me a little bit about you. So how long have you been with Nokia?
I've been with Nokia for 4 years. I joined them in 2017 after holding some pre-sales leadership positions at other vendors within the space.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get involved in the kind of the technology area, fiber communications?
Well, it all goes back to 2006 when I accepted a job at Dish Network writing code for their DVR set-top boxes.
Wow.
Yeah, this predates IPTV. At the time, being able to time shift your TV viewing experience was all the rage. And then shortly thereafter, they bought a company called Sling Media, who we now know is for the over-the-top IPTV video service. But at the time, they had introduced the idea of being able to place shift your viewing experience out of the home. And that was pretty novel. So I had the great opportunity to transition from video service delivery into data through that acquisition and that transformation, and then I got into cable modem sales in 2010, supporting some of the largest cable operators in the U.S. And then after that, I went into business services, working on business services CPE solutions for the cable industry. And now here I am at Nokia working on fiber to the home, and it's been a great ride, and I've seen several industry transformations, and I'm really excited about what the next few years are going to bring to our industry.
I think I may be using that DVR from DirecTV. Who knows? I've got a set bump. It's probably a newer one, but so we've got that here. So yeah, definitely time shifting was a big deal. So I always appreciated that.
So no more VHS tapes.
That's right. That was always a hassle. And there's people watching probably who are too young to remember that, but who knows? So
perhaps.
Yeah. So again, we're talking about fiber today. So we have some slides that we're going to bring up. So I'll go ahead and get us started on that. So actually, let me go back to the beginning here again. There we go.
Don't give away the answers. There's going to be a test at the end of this.
Again, checking some things out, making sure they're working before we get started here. So again, we're talking about GPON and XGS-PON today. So we'll be getting more into what those are. A lot of people probably know maybe some specifics here. So why do customers leave a service provider? That's kind of your first question there.
Well, clearly, yes. Service providers have several business challenges that they face as we enter the 2020 decade and move throughout it. And one of the things we have to consider is how do we keep the subscribers we actually have in the footprint. We want to grow take rate where we have footprint, and we want to expand footprint into new areas so we have new customers to go after. So when we look at customer behavior as far as broadband services go, price is an issue. We see new competitive forces entering service provider footprint today that offer similar services at differing price points. Outages and reliability of the service that you already provide is certainly of concern. Customers are aware of every outage that come up, regardless of whether we think that they may be or not. Especially with the IoT movement. I mean, if you have a Ring doorbell, for example, and it goes offline, and someone rings your doorbell, and they say, "Hey, where were you? I rang your doorbell and you didn't come up on the app and talk to me. What's going on?" Well, there's an outage. And then thirdly, user experience is of concern too. Lack of certain features like managed Wi-Fi, parental controls, and just general management of the in-home experience are all things that that could cause a service provider to leave. So today, service providers need to think about a highly reliable network that aces the speeds and feeds requirements and enables them to deliver a good value.
And then it's, I think we're going to see here in a second, a lot of times it's the applications and what people are doing that's kind of driving this need for speed, right?
Exactly. So we've taken a little bit of a step back a few years, right? A few years ago, it was all about who can deliver gigabit speeds because Google Fiber was coming in and overbuilding some of the wireline carriers. So it was all about who had the fastest internet. Now, as we enter the 2020s, we're starting to see the web scale application providers deliver new experiences, new applications over the top, and the service providers are having to respond to that. And now going forward, the service provider of the future needs to start thinking about differentiation and delivering new customer experiences so they can secure more market share and increase profitability. So really, that's that's customer experience if you think about it, and it's really the confluence of differentiated value, performance of the network, and optimize cost. And that those three things, when they come together, that's customer experience. So things that service providers are starting to think of to achieve that confluence are agility and automation and simplicity and an always-on cloud-native network. If you start thinking about those things as a service provider, then you'll be able to increase the speed at which you innovate, be able to deliver new differentiated services, and be able to increase profitability and increase take rate.
And I think this next slide kind of covers what I was saying there as far as what we've seen happen, with broadband service over the years. It's requiring more and more speed.
It's true. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Well, we never really reach the end of the tunnel.
Would that be fiber? Because it's fiber, there's light at the end of the conduit?
There's light at the end of the conduit, and there's light along the glass as we progress throughout the glass. So what we see here is, if you take a look back into the early 2010s, we saw 100 meg services and triple play be the prevalent use case of the service delivery network. Then we went into the gigabit area and the 2 to 5 gig era here as we ended the 2010s, and we started to see things like cloud gaming, 4K video, and some IoT applications. But now, as we get into this decade, the 2020s, and we move throughout that, what we see is there's even more use cases that are driven by AI, machine learning, very, very high quality video, autonomous vehicles, and mobility. And all of those use cases are starting to use more bandwidth, require more agile automated networks that can respond to changing demands. And the good news is for service providers is that if they can figure out how to deliver those experiences to their end users, they'll be able to differentiate themselves among competitors and drive higher profits and more take rates. And as we move throughout the decade and as we get to higher speeds, the possibilities of these new experiences start to increase. There's more ideas out there on the horizon that operators can take advantage of.
And you mentioned video, and that's certainly been a big driver of bandwidth use from subscribers. You've got 4K, and then you've got even higher coming, and then latency as well, because you mentioned autonomous vehicles. So latency is important as well, and I know fiber's got low latency. So how does that work into this as well? Is the latency getting any better, or is it just already low enough, do you think?
Well, I think for latency to be at an appropriate level for newer use cases like autonomous cars and AI and machine learning to be able to react to certain changing situations, you not only have to have a network that's fiber based, so you can take advantages of the speed there, but you also need a network that can efficiently and effectively prioritize and handle the traffic to minimize that latency. So you need an intelligent network that can recognize the type of traffic, what it's being used for, and be able to route it and switch it and process it accordingly. If you look at the way 3GPP has defined the 5G architecture, they have this concept called network slicing, where by standard you can push up to 8 slices to what they call a UE, or a user endpoint. That's usually a phone or a tablet or a modem or something like that. Each of those slices can go into a separate data plane of traffic and be handled differently. The smart fiber network of the future also incorporates things like network slicing to be able to handle those types of use cases as they become more mature.
Yeah, I think also in the DOCSIS world, you've got DOCSIS 4.0, 10G, where they're talking about low latency DOCSIS. Again, having to use a lot of fiber to do that. As these latencies need to decrease, they're having to get fiber closer and closer to the customer as well.
Absolutely. If you're going to use DOCSIS in the first mile, you definitely want to start looking at how do you push fiber deeper into the network. One of the main challenges with DOCSIS is upstream. You're going to need, if you're doing big data applications, like there was one webinar talking about how there's a company that uses drones to do aerial crop surveillance. And if you use drones to do aerial crop surveillance, you're uploading quite a bit of data to a public cloud that shows you the utilization of the crops and all the effectiveness of the fertilizers and all of that. If you're uploading a lot of data, you really need a high bandwidth return path. DOCSIS may get challenging in some of those use cases.
Something I forgot to mention, by the way, for those watching, is if you are watching live and you have questions, feel free to just type those into YouTube chat. And Chris and I will see that, and we can answer those questions as they come up, or certainly at the end if we get those in time. So be sure to do that. So as I look at this slide, I see 2.5 gig and 10 gig kind of there in the middle. So that's, I think, kind of the sweet spot of where things are right now, right? Because we've got GPON and we've got XGS-PON. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up your next slide here, because I think you've got a comparison of those here that maybe you can go through.
That's right. So GPON is the gigabit era technology that's been deployed very, very widely in the telco and cable space throughout the last 5 to 7 years. GPON is a technology that's standardized by the ITU, and it carries about 2.5 gigs in the forward path and 1.25 gigs in the return path. It's got a great split ratio. It uses a shared passive optical network, which has been proven over the long haul to be less expensive to maintain than any copper-based network that's out there, including coax, HFC. A lot of that's due to the fact that you're immune to RF interference, and you don't have any actives in the outside plant that you have to maintain. So that's GPON, and that's still a very relevant technology. It really provides a good low-cost way to deliver very competitive broadband services to a group of customers in an operator footprint. XGS-PON came on the scene a few years later. XGS-PON is a 10 gig down, 10 gig up symmetrical medium. It too rides fiber on different wavelengths, and it's also an ITU-T standard, G9807, as opposed to G.984 for GPON, so a different standard. It also accommodates a pretty high split ratio. Typically, we see operators do about a 64-way split with XGS and more like a 32 with GPON. And the only difference with GPON and XGS on the physical side of it that's of note is that XGS does require forward error correction, whereas that was optional on GPON. So what that means is that with forward error correction enabled, you do get 8.5 gigs symmetrical as actual data payload. But still, it's great for sub 10 gig services, definitely effective for gigabit services or 2 gig services. And the good news is that they ride separate wavelengths, so it's easy to overlay one on top of the other.
I was going to ask about that. So I don't know if you have a slide on that. So if somebody's trying to make a decision now on what they want to do, and they are deciding which technology to put in, or maybe they've got GPON and they're trying to decide whether to get XGS, they can do those things concurrently?
That's true, yes. But before we go there, you might want to look at the next slide, okay, and we can look at what the industry is doing, because it's interesting to see how the industry's reacted to XGS-PON and what's on the horizon. And then there's several considerations that we might want to look at as operators start to consider which GPON or XGS to deploy. Okay. So if you look, this is data from Del Oro as of July 2021, so relatively recent. This shows us a 3-year in the rear view mirror and about 4 years through the windshield. So if you're looking at the way the world is today, we're starting to see XGS-PON really take off, which is great for the industry because it means that the costs are coming down for that equipment. More bandwidth, lower cost. Those are good things. GPON has still very prevalent in the industry. Operators are still buying it and deploying it, and will be for some time. Over the next several years, we see XGS-PON increasing its margin of lead over the GPON technology, primarily by the middle of the decade, by a very large margin. And then as we near the middle of the decade, we start to look at 25 gig PON coming on the scene for enterprise and some of the other real-time applications that require more bandwidth. But we can talk about that in a second too.
And so I hear some about 50 gig PON too, which is I think in Asia. And is there like a little bit, is that kind of like Betamax and VHS, and is there a little bit of war going on there as to what people are gonna do?
Well, I wouldn't call it totally a Betamax VHS debacle, but 50 gig is certainly one next step the industry could take. However, there are a number of vendors and operators that believe 25 is a very good next step to take prior to 50, and towards the end of our show, we can look at who those folks are that believe in 25, and we can talk about why that makes sense, especially here in North America.
Okay. All right. So here you've got multi-PON optimizes cost per connect. So what are we looking at here?
Well, yeah. So you asked a minute ago about GPON, XGS-PON, what should an operator choose and why? Well, the answer is now you don't have to. GPON and XGS-PON can coexist on the same piece of fiber, and now they can coexist on that same piece of fiber off of the same OLT, the aggregation platform in the head end, with the same physical optic. So you no longer need a MUX or WDM or anything like that external to the OLT to make that happen. And so one way to do this is to get the combination optics that enable this to happen. Nokia does have those available, and the industry does have those available as well in some cases. But basically, what you can do is deploy your base service tiers on GPON to minimize your cost per connect. The ONTs are a lot less expensive today, probably 20 to 30% less expensive for a GPON ONT, and that works great for the base service tiers of 100 meg, 200 meg, 300 meg. And then for customers who take a gigabit or even more, like a small business customer, you could use XGS-PON for that and deploy the XGS-PON ONT. for those customers. So that's one way to slice it and dice it. And they effortlessly coexist on the same piece of fiber. So the provisioning is the same, the OSS connection is the same, the management is the same, and it's all off of the same chassis. So you're not running two disparate networks.
That's great. And then I guess the consumer demand at some point could push that to 25 or to XGS as well, right? Just as more of these applications come about where people need that.
Sure, you could basically cap your GPON deployment at some point and start moving customers to XGS as time goes on, and then it's as simple as shutting down the GPON wavelength when the last customer goes off of GPON. But the good news is, with both of those two services running simultaneously, you have even more bandwidth to work with. It's like having two separate interfaces riding the same piece of physical cabling. It's not that they are sharing any bandwidth whatsoever. And then as we move to 25 gig, there are configurations where you can actually coexist 25 gig and XGS or 25 gig and GPON on the same physical fiber as well.
That's amazing.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys are obviously in this market, so tell us a little bit about Nokia and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so Nokia has a rich history in fiber to the home. This data is from Kagan, another market research and analyst firm, and they regularly, quarter over quarter, survey customers and manufacturers to get data. So the XGS-PON OLT port shipments is one metric that we use to assess vendor market share. And if you look at vendor market share, we do have the largest globally of market share for XGS-PON port shipments as of Q1 of 2021. There's other players in the space besides Nokia, and we are one industry, of course. But Nokia does have a pretty considerable market share in XGS-PON today. And then if you look at our history in the space, we have a lot of firsts because we do have a pretty large research arm called Bell Labs that that invents a few different things. But we have a big, deep commitment to R&D at Nokia. One of the things that we've come out with here in the last 18 months to 2 years is our own chipset, and we'll talk about that in a second. Multi-PON technology, the ability to have GPON and XGS-PON ride the same physical piece of fiber off of the same OLT port is another technology that we've implemented in our GPON XGS-PON platforms. And then we also are the first to have 25 gig PON and then also 100 gig PON demo or demonstrate 100 gig PON, which we'll talk about here in the next couple of slides. The other piece of it is our current solutions. So I like to say, if you can think of an OLT port density or deployment application, we have a right-sized platform that addresses that. Our most popular platform is our FX series. It's designed for central offices and head ends. And it's also temperature hardened for outside plant deployments, like in cabinets or even in MDUs that are not climate controlled. All of these platforms are pay as you grow. So we can go all the way down to 1 PON port or all the way up to over 100 PON ports in a chassis. And basically we have small, medium, and large rack mountable solutions, as well as a sealed fiber node that acts like an HFC fiber node when it comes to installation and cabling, but it does PON. It can do GPON or XGS-PON. So there's quite a bit of options on the OLT side. And then, as I alluded to earlier in our conversation, the in-home experience is key. You can deliver a lot of bandwidth to a customer, and if they aren't able to get good Wi-Fi performance or consume it with the devices they have in their home, then that service may not have the value you intend. So with that in mind, we do have a full line of ONTs and in-home solutions like managed Wi-Fi that enable service providers to ensure that they're delivering a good solution in the home so the customer can consume the service that they're delivering. Mm-hmm. And then we do a lot of partnership with Quorum, and we have a full line of management and service delivery and provisioning and orchestration software that goes hand in hand with the services and the solutions that Quorum offers. Mm-hmm. And so we make turning up subscribers and managing their experience easy. As far as provisioning, turn up, MACD orders, and business as usual network management functions. Mm. The key challenge I've seen a lot of operators face over the years is when you deploy a platform and you start to scale that platform, if the business as usual day-to-day functions are manual in nature and they require a lot of human intervention, then your OpEx cost really goes up as you scale. And ideally, you want to get the economies of scale. So as you get more subscribers, your margin goes up because you get more automation and you get more flexibility. That's the business outcome that we offer with our management and orchestration solutions. Yeah. So as I said a moment ago, we are the only vendor outside of China and the Asia Pac region to offer a PON OLT that is based on our own chipset. We have an in-house chipset design that is 25 gig hardware capable, and it reduces power consumption quite a bit. Our solution enables us to control our own destiny. When it comes to the features and the economy of the solution from an OpEx perspective, and we're pleased to be able to pass those advantages on to our customers. So all of our OLT platforms going forward are based on this chipset we call Quillian.
Quillian. So this is your own chipset. Are you guys are you having the same situation as pretty much everybody, where it's hard to get chips? Or is it because it's yours, it's a little bit easier?
Well, Quillian does help us reduce lead times and deliver in a reduced amount of time for our customers. There's no doubt about that. The chipset shortage is an industry-wide problem. So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution that eliminates the challenges, but it certainly helps. Yeah. The chipset shortages we see affect not only ASICs and those types of semiconductors, but they also affect some of the other more commonly used semiconductors like voltage regulators and basic interface converters and things like that. So where those challenges exist, we may also have challenges. But the good news is that we do run a lot of volume at Nokia, so we do make every effort we can to serve all of our customers in the shortest possible time.
Yeah, it's even affecting automobiles. I mean, anywhere there's a chip, I think people are struggling with that.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
So this is, I guess, where you guys. This was a press release.
Yeah. So Proximus is a European service provider. They are the first operator globally to deploy 25 gig PON in a live network. So today they earn the title of the world's fastest live fiber network. They did that with us. There's a press release link there. We can probably share that out in the comments. And we would love it if the viewers at home would check that out. But basically, we did that with one card powered by our Quillian chipset. That card's available today, and it supports GPON, XGS-PON, which is 10 gig, and 25 gig PON, all on the same card. And we can converge those services on a single fiber to the home network. And we're very pleased that Proximus worked with us, and we're grateful for that opportunity.
Right. And I guess there's your list of folks that are supporting the 25.
Well, yeah. So the ITU is a standards body that established standards for GPON and XGS-PON, and in addition to that, the Asia Pac market did believe that 50 gig PON is a popular choice for next step. We are certainly doing a lot of work in next gen PON, and you'll see in the next slide that there's life even beyond 25 and 50 gig. We haven't stopped developing new PON technologies, nor have other vendors in the space. But there are about 41 members of a multi-standards alliance or multi-source agreement, MSA group, that have formed an alliance together to create an ecosystem for 25 gig PON that takes advantage of some economics in the optics that can deliver this. And these members in the 25 gig symmetrical PON MSA are very committed to supporting a 25 gig symmetrical PON ecosystem for various applications, such as IoT, 5G, front haul, mid haul, and backhaul, as well as RPD backhaul is another use case for that in DOCSIS. So, and these are operators and vendors alike. I'm sure many of us recognize some of the logos that have joined this alliance. So we believe at Nokia there's a good support for a 25 gig symmetrical PON technology. We have hardware capable of that today in our PON line. And we're excited about what the future will bring for 25 gig symmetrical PON.
And as you said, you're not stopping there.
Absolutely. So, we believe that 25 gig PON will provide good value for operators as we near the middle part of the decade, and as indicated by some market research we talked about a minute ago. But obviously, it doesn't stop there, right? There's also 100 gig symmetrical PON. We did a proof of concept with Vodafone in their Germany lab, and there's a press release available for that. That was 100 gig on a single lambda, not bonding lambdas together, but one single lambda. We did 100 gig PON in their lab as a proof of concept, and that was powered by Bell Labs, our research division. And we will absolutely be innovating beyond 25 and 50 gig PON. And we're very committed to the fiber to the home space and the faster speed technologies.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty amazing when I think about how the technology has changed. I was reminded about this just a few days ago when I found an email back from 1995 when I was working for the same company when we were kind of where we got started, which was a dial-up internet provider here in the Atlanta area. So we were talking about dial-up speeds and those kinds of things, and we're now talking about 100 gigabits per second symmetrical. So that's pretty amazing. But I think what I got out of this is that if somebody's trying to decide what they want to do, they could feel pretty comfortable if they go with Nokia on things being compatible, whether it's you've got GPON and you've got XGS-PON that can coexist, and even the 25 gigabits per second GPON, that if somebody's putting in your equipment that they're kind of future-proofed in a sense there. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Our number one priority is to reduce OpEx and eliminate regrettable spend. Yeah. The technology you buy today is upgradable to software that's available tomorrow. We don't advocate operators having to rip and replace with our solutions. So the technology you buy today will be upgradable with minimal to no hardware rip and replace. And we give you choices. So we can absolutely take a look at any operator's specific service lineup, their desired business goals and objectives, and help them identify the right GPON, XGS-PON configuration that works for them, and even help them understand what the path to 25 gig looks like. And all of that can be done by engaging the Z-Quorum account representative that serves them. And they can bring us into those conversations. We'd love to have them.
Yeah, we would too. And as you can see here, we're a Nokia partner. So if you've got an interest in the Nokia fiber solution, just give us a call or send an email there. Or if you do have an account rep that you work with, contact them. And we work closely with you guys. So can have, we love to have demo calls and presentations and talk with you and your and what your needs are as far as how we can serve those with the Nokia equipment. So thanks everybody for joining us. And if this was helpful for you, if you just go ahead and give us a thumbs up on the video, I'd appreciate that. If you're not already subscribed, if you're not a subscriber, go ahead and click the subscribe button on YouTube and make sure you click the little bell if you want to be notified when we're live. And I'm live every week at 3 o'clock. So, and I guess you are in Nashville today, right? So you're at the NTCA show.
That's right. So, it wraps this evening.
Yeah. So if anybody happens to be watching this and you're there, go find Chris, and actually you can go to the Z-Quorum booth. Alex Rivera, our representative, is at the Z-Quorum booth as well. So be happy to talk to you about this or anything else as you're there. So enjoy the rest of the show. Hopefully it was good for you. And again, I appreciate your time, Chris.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great to chat with you and with your customers.
Yeah, so thanks, everybody. I don't see any questions, so nobody had a question while watching live. If you have a question that occurs to you later, or if you're watching a recording of this, it'll be recorded as soon as this live version is over, then just go ahead and type that in the YouTube comments, and we'll answer that. If it's really, really technical, I'll get with Chris and get an answer from him. So thanks, everybody, for joining us, and I will see you next week at 3 o'clock for Tech Tuesday. Bye-bye.